Hey everyone, Renee here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing my May wrap up. So I'm not gonna lie, typically when it comes to wrap-ups, I'm never as excited to film them, but for some reason there's something about May. I'm actually really excited to tell you guys about what I read in May. I had a really weird all over the place month. There were some good, there were some bad, but overall it was just kind of great in a sense. And another thing that I'm going to start implementing into my wrap-ups is some stats, just to kind of give an overview in the beginning. So I do have some stats written down. So for the month of May, I actually read 9 books, which I think is my best reading month since the beginning of the year. I think I might have read more in January, but ever since then, my reading months have not been the best. But May was actually pretty good. I read 9 books for a total of 2,820 pages. And then I also do have a breakdown of genres. So I read 5 romance. I've been in a huge romance mood. So 5 romance, 1 thriller, 1 horror, 1 historical fiction, and 1 graphic novel. And as far as my ratings, this is where it really goes all over the place. I had 3 5-star reads. I had 1 4-star, 1 3.5, 2 3-stars, 1 2-star, and 1 1-star read. And on top of that, actually one of those was a DNF. And also I will say that my DNF and my 1-star were not the same book, unfortunately. Actually, you know what? Hold please. 5 out of the 9 books were audiobooks. I have recently fallen in love with audiobooks, and I used to not really do audiobooks often, but because of my commute to work and how long it is, I've actually found pleasure in listening to audiobooks on my commute to work because I feel like my commute really cuts into my reading time in general, so utilizing that time to read, I've been loving. So yeah, I read 5 audiobooks. So yeah, there were 5 audiobooks, and Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar was the first one. Now, this is a thriller, and this is my first Riley Sagar book that I ever read, and I wasn't sure going into it how I would feel because I've noticed with Riley Sagar, he's really hit or miss for a lot of people. But, you know, I decided to give Lock Every Door a chance, and I'm not gonna lie, at first, I was not liking it. There were some things that were repeated where I was like, I get it. You don't have to keep reminding me, you know? Because if you don't know, Lock Every Door follows our main character who ends up becoming an apartment sitter in this apartment complex called the Bartholomew. It's like this really Gothic style apartment complex in New York. Yes, because it's by Central Park. So New York. There's just like a bunch of rules to this apartment, and it's kind of eerie, and it's just all the vibes, like all the like creepy vibes are definitely there. And she becomes an apartment sitter, and it's just this whole grand thing because she doesn't come from money. You know, she's had a hard run of things. She's poor, she's broke, and she has nowhere else to go. So this is like a dream come true for her to be able to live in this apartment and get paid to live there. Like they pay you to live there just to sit the apartment, you know, so that it doesn't look like it's vacant while they find an actual resident or tenant to live there. And then she starts noticing weird things, you know, people are going missing, including her friend, who was also an apartment sitter in the Bartholomew, and that's not a spoiler because it says it on the back of the book. But she ends up going missing, and then she starts investigating where she went, and it just launches into this mystery of what is going on in the Bartholomew. And the twist at the end of the book, when you finally learn about like what's going on in the Bartholomew, when I say that I was shook, because I didn't see that coming. Like there were a couple things that happened in the book where I was like, okay, okay. Like the actual twist at the end of the book, I did not see coming. And it was just so, personally to me, I thought well done. And then things that annoyed me earlier in the book suddenly made sense. And I suddenly wasn't annoyed by them because it just all made sense in the end. But I did end up only giving this a 3.5. This is a book that I still don't know if I want to give it a 4-star, if I want to give it a 3-star. 3 stars seems too low and a 4-star seems too high. So it's kind of in purgatory in the middle. because whereas I really did enjoy the ending a lot, it didn't quite make up for the fact that the first half of the book just wasn't that good. And then the next book that I read in the month of May was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, and this was my DNF. This is my first DNF of the year. I simply did not like it. And I'm sad about it too, because I went into this and at first I was liking it, but then I just got really annoyed with the characters. I don't know what it was, but maybe I just didn't make it far enough. I made it 50% through the book. I ended up giving it 2 stars and DNFing it. I don't know what it was. I just wasn't vibing with it at all. I don't know if it was like the story of it, but I just wasn't excited to read it. I didn't like picking it up. It wasn't something that I wanted to continue with. And that being said, I just DNF'd it. I gave it a 2-star because I did really like the premise, and you know, it wasn't like it was like awful. Like it's not like I'm gonna like trash it or anything like that. It just wasn't for me. Then the next book that I read in the month of May was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and this book, chef's kiss. This book is a new all-time favorite. 5 out of 5 star, absolutely adored it, like became so obsessed with this book. Like literally, I'm gonna say this, there's a part in this book where like they just like talk about Mai Tais. Like they mention Mai Tais several times in this book, and it's a drink that I actually have never had. And I remember I went out with a friend for dinner like a week after I finished this book, and on the menu they had Mai Tais, and I literally just looked up at my friend and said, I have to get the Mai Tai. And it was because of this book, and I just like was sitting there sipping my Mai Tai, just like thinking about these characters in this book, and just I love it. I absolutely love it, and I highly recommend it to anyone who wants a nice rom-com feel romance book. It reads just like a rom-com. But essentially, if you don't know what The Unhoneymooners is about, it follows our 2 main characters who are actually the brother and sister of a bride and groom who got married. And they were all at the wedding, and they had like this all-you-can-eat seafood buffet for their reception, and everybody got sick with food poisoning except for our 2 main characters because they did not eat the buffet. So they ended up taking their siblings' honeymoon. But it's funny because they hate each other. It's very much an enemies to lovers trope type of romance. They do not get along, but they decide to take their siblings up on the offer to just go on their honeymoon. So you got 2 enemies going on a romantic getaway to the tropics, and you can only imagine what happens. And it's just really, really funny. It's so well written in my opinion, and there's just so many moments in this book that have me laughing out loud. This is a book that I did listen to on audiobook, and I was just in my car having an absolute ball. I got to work in a good mood. I came home in a good mood, and it's all because of this book. And it was just perfect timing because, you know, it's summer now, so it was just giving me all the summer vibes. And I just cannot recommend this book enough. Read it for the summer. It's amazing. And then have yourself a Mai Tai if you're of age. Then the next book that I read in the month of May was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This was a physical read. And I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 star. I know you've heard me say this a lot, but I'm gonna keep saying it, that I read this for my good friend Jan's book club. She has a book club called the Full Moon Book Club. This was her pick of the month for May. So obviously I read it for that, and the live show is really fun, and if you would like to join Jan's book club, the link will be down below. You totally should. It's a lot of fun. But I also was really excited because this was one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I was just let down. I think it's because I had so many expectations of it, with it being so anticipated for me, that it just fell really flat. It wasn't bad, it was just very average, which is why I gave it 3 stars. And it's set in 2 different time periods that it flips through. So one of the timelines is in the 1700s London, and one of the other timelines is modern day London. And this is stuff that we all discussed in the book club, so once again, you should join the book club. I don't know. It's a book that I know I'm definitely not going to remember next month, if that makes any sense. Like, you know how you just, sometimes you read a book and it's just so average that a month later you can't remember anything that you read? I sadly think that's gonna be this book. And the next book that I read was The Right Swipe by Alicia Rai. This book took me all month to read. This book literally took me the entire month of May to read, which is why I'm just gonna talk about it now, because I just figured a middle ground is good. And I ended up giving it 3 stars. It's what it deserves. I literally, by the time I was like almost done with it, I was like on the last 100 pages, I was literally just like, please let me finish this and just give it the 3 stars it deserves. I couldn't DNF it because like it wasn't bad. Like, it's not like I was hating it or anything, but it just did not meet my expectations. It was subpar. It was average. I did really enjoy our main character, Rhiannon, though. I thought she was very, very strong, determined, driven. You know, we love like just a really strong female lead in a book, and I did feel like this delivered on that. But the overall plot of it was just kind of boring. I honestly found it pretty boring. You know, they both work for 2 rival dating apps. She's the CEO of one, and she's trying to buy a dating app out from under him, and I don't know, maybe it was just too businessy for me. Maybe that's what it was. There was a lot of business going on in here, and I typically don't mind, you know, business stuff, but I just got so bored. Like, right when I started like really getting into it and enjoying it, it just like went way off, and I was like, all right, I'm bored again. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this. To be honest, I've already forgotten half the book. 3 out of 5. Then the next book that I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is another book I listened to on audio, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 star. Okay, so I know better now. I know better now. Because as soon as I read it, and I said how emotional it made me, everyone was like, oh my god, I know, right? And I was like, okay, so I guess everyone said this book was sad, and I missed that part. Because I went into this book right after the Unhoneymooners thinking that it was going to be like some funny rom-com type summer vibe book, especially with the title like Beach Read. And I ended up crying, but it was so good. There were definitely some funny moments to it along with the sad. Essentially, this book follows our 2 main characters who are both authors, and our one main female lead, I guess for lack of a better word, she's kind of in a writing slump, and she decides to go to her father's beach home in Michigan, I think it was, which was odd for like a beach setting book in my opinion. It kind of, to me, I don't know, I was just picturing a lake house, and she ends up being neighbors to her rival in the writing world, and maybe just life in general. So this is definitely another one that's kind of a enemies to lovers, and they kind of make a bet to kind of swap genres. So like, whereas he usually writes some darker literary fiction books, he has to write a like sweet feminine romance, which is what she would usually write, and then vice versa. They set out to do that over the summer, and then just watching their relationship grow into something more, because obviously you know that's gonna happen, was beautiful to see. I thought that the pacing was absolutely amazing. I was so drawn into these characters' developments with each other and just in general within themselves, because there was a lot of character development individually as well. And just the stories going on in the background of what made this so sad is because both of them were going through something, and especially the main female lead, oh my god, it just broke my heart, and I ended up crying. Then the next book that I read was also an audiobook, and also by Emily Henry, which is The People We Meet on Vacation. I love this book. I love this book. 5 out of 5 star. I don't know if I would place it in my all-time faves just yet, because I did still like Unhoneymooners better, but oh my gosh. This is the rom-com that I thought I was going to get in Beach Read. And this one actually is more friends to lovers in a sense. It's like friends to, are they friends to back to friends to lovers, I guess you could say. But it does take place in a lot of different timelines, but it does very well in piecing them together. So you'll notice the chapters will go from like 5 summers ago, this summer, 12 summers ago, this summer, 11 summers ago, this summer, and it's just bouncing back and forth. It's just beautiful to see the relationship of our 2 main characters over time. So you have the this summer where things are not quite as they were when they were younger. They had a falling out, and this summer is like their way of maybe trying to patch things back up. But at the same time, as you're kind of going through the adventure of the this summer with them, you're also seeing all their previous summers, because a common thing for them was to take a summer trip. So they had been doing that for years. So you get to see all of their summer trips and as their relationship developed, how it fell apart and how it came back together again. And I thought that it was just beautifully done. It was very, very funny. And just the concept of it, it's the people we meet on vacation, and honestly, the people that you meet throughout the book on their vacations. It's just so interesting, and it just kind of makes me excited to take more trips and just really live in the moment and enjoy it for what it is. Meet people, you know, because everyone that you meet in life teaches you something, even if it's so small, and I do very much believe in that. And I have been on several vacations now where I've met some people, and I still go back and kind of think about them like, wow, I remember those people that we met at that place. And our main female lead, Poppy, she was so sassy. I love book characters named Poppy. It's official. Then the next book that I read in May was Paper Girls Volume 1. And this is a graphic novel, and I've been wanting to read it for quite a while, so I'm glad that I finally picked it up because it was such a fun ride. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 star, and I love the aesthetics. Like, the coloring of the pages is just so pleasing on the eyes to read. And essentially it just follows this squad of paper girls, and you know, they start investigating some weird stuff that starts happening in the neighborhood, and it's just a fun ride. I like the girl power, and like I said, I love the aesthetics of it. It's just very pleasing to read, very fun, and I can't wait to continue with the series because I definitely do plan on continuing. Then we have the last book that I read in May, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I hated this book. This is the one that I gave a 1 star to. And if you do like this book, I do not mean to offend you by my opinion on it. And if you do feel like you might get a little offended, that's another reason why I saved it for last. So you can go ahead and click off, because I don't want to ruin anyone's day by trashing their favorite book. But that's exactly what I'm about to do. I just didn't like it. And I had no expectations going into this book because I thought that that would be better. You know, when you don't go into something with too high expectations, you know, it's easy to exceed your expectations, and therefore you might like it better. Because I had heard people like really liking it or really not liking it. So I went into it not knowing. And I genuinely thought that I would like it because, you know, you say Gothic horror set in Mexico. I was like, yes, give it to me. I actually fell asleep reading this twice, because the first half of this book was so boring. Like, when I say this was one of the most boring starts to a book I've ever read, for what? Like, it was eerie. Like, there were definitely some creepy vibes going on. The atmosphere was definitely interesting for, like, the first, like, 5 pages. And that was it. And I read this for a 24-hour readathon, which unfortunately will not be up before this video goes up. So if you want to see that, you can subscribe, and when that comes out, you'll know. But you'll get to see all my reactions to this book because I had a lot of reactions to this book, none of them good. But the only reason that I continued with this book and suffered through the boredom was because I heard that people really liked the twist. They were like, oh, this twist is so cool and interesting, and you know, I'm not trying to say that I'm like some huge horror know-it-all and like some massive critic, but I'm a big horror fan and I've watched a lot of horror. And I kept reading for the twist, and I felt punked because this twist was so stupid. Like, I was like, what, are you kidding? Like, never done, never before seen, or like never done before. I was like, because it's dumb. It was just so stupid and a waste of time. And then by the time I got to the twist, like, I felt like I had to keep reading because I was already there close to the end, so I just pushed through it. But then it got to another point where it wasn't just stupid, it was also gross. And like I said, I've watched a lot of horror. I know that there's a lot of gross things in horror, like in all different facets. But I was just kind of grossed out reading this book. Like, as a woman, there were a couple things that just made me really uncomfortable. And like I said, I know that there's a lot of that in horror, you know, shock value or whatever. I just didn't like it. I didn't like reading it. I don't know. And it was just my reactions to this book. I either fell asleep in the beginning because I was bored, or I groaned because it was stupid, or I gagged because it was gross. And none of those are reactions that anybody wants to experience while reading a book. Because of that, obviously, I gave this a 1 star because I finally read a book I was excited to read and wish I never read it. 1 out of 5 would never recommend to a friend. So yes, that is what I read in May. It was a very all over the place month in terms of just the level of reading. You know, I had some great reads, some not so great reads, audio and physical, different types of genres. It was a very well-rounded month, I think. Even if I had some bad reads, you know, maybe I got them out of the way. That's pretty much all I have for you in this video. If you did like this video, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up down below to help support this channel. And like I said earlier, don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to follow me on my reading journey and keep up with me and what I'm doing here on this channel. And like always, my social media links will also be down below. Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, the works. Follow me more closely if you will. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you. Once again, I hope you liked this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!